doing great today. So it's another great day for some reading, and we have still the same books. I was actually thinking about yesterday, I've got this bookshelf behind me, and a lot of people will show you their top books. So my top 5, my top 10, whatever it is. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be a lot more fun to actually do a video and show you every book that I own and what I got from it, what I didn't get from it, and tell you a little bit about each of those books. And I have a lot of books, even though I purged a long time ago. About 2 years ago, I purged and got rid of a lot of books and went digital. So I'll show you my Audible account as well and what I have on there. And yeah, we'll make an extra video outside of the reading sessions that we're doing here. But in the meantime, let's get started with our reading. 15 minutes of reading, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I still only have it in Chinese, but we are reading this amazing book called The Art of Thinking Clearly. And just like I'll tell you about the books behind me and in the other rooms that I have, people talk about their top 5 books or their top 10 books, but really it's important to have a look at all of the books that you own and which ones you thought were good, which ones you thought weren't so good. And with this book, for example, there are some chapters that I agree with, some that I don't. So I give you the commentary, and it's a lot of fun, but it's also very, very, it's a really good technique to have a look at. So we had to talk about coincidence, we had to look at groupthink, and today we're up to chapter 26, and it's good. Here we go. We'll just let somebody into the Zoom. So Mladen is joining us, so it's really nice to have Mladen this morning. So that is perfect. Good to see you again. So we just did the introductory, so we haven't actually started reading yet, so the timing is perfect, Mladen. We're up to chapter 26, Why You'll Soon Be Paying Megatrillions, The Neglect of Probability. This should be another interesting chapter, so here we go. So 2 games of chance. In the first, you can win $10 million, and in the second, $10,000. Which do you play? If you win the first game, it changes your life completely. You can quit your job, tell your boss where to go, and live off the winnings. If you hit the jackpot in the second game, you can take a nice vacation in the Caribbean, but you'll be back at your desk quickly enough to see your postcard arrive. The probability of winning is 1 in 100 million in the first game and 1 in 10,000 in the second game. So which do you choose? Very good question, huh? There we go. Just hit a button that I need to hit. So it's interesting because a lot of people don't think about it this way. And there's a famous golf game where Warren Buffett was playing and somebody bet him, I think it was $10,000 if he could hit a hole in one. And he said, no. Somebody bet him then, I think it was 100,000 if he'd hit a hole in one. And he said, no. And he did the calculation and he actually talked about the fact that he would only bet, even though there was a chance that, well, the chance was probably going to be that he would actually win. And yet he still said no to it because he'd actually done the calculation and he realized that the odds weren't that good. And it's important for us to understand probabilities of things because we are actually very poor judges of what the probabilities are of a certain event. I used to actually take my cash flow club and we used to go to the casino back when it was open, when we weren't in lockdown, for example. But I would actually go through and talk about the difference between investing and gambling. And I would talk about the actual statistics, the actual probabilities of winning each of the different games. We go to blackjack area and I talk about the statistics and the probabilities. I go to the roulette table, talk about a couple of probabilities there, because obviously they have a lot of different probabilities because you have all these different things you can choose from on a roulette table. So we used to do that. It was a lot of fun. And I'm hoping to start doing that again when everything comes out of lockdown and we can talk about the difference between gambling and investing because there's a big difference. But let's go back to You'll Soon Be Paying Megatrillions. Our emotions draw us to the first game, even though the second is 10 times better, objectively considered, expecting win times probability. Therefore, the trend is towards ever larger jackpots, mega millions, mega billions, mega trillions, no matter how small the odds are. And the reason for this is because people pay for the tickets. And all of those ticket sales allow for the amount that they're actually offering, which means that more and more people must be buying tickets. And obviously inflation is also increasing, but more and more people are buying tickets, which means that the jackpots can get bigger because the government that's running these actually has that amount of money available to be able to make that the prize. unless they do like a pay you for life, and then the government makes even more money. That's another story entirely. In a classic experiment from 1972, participants were divided into two groups. The members of the first group were told that they would receive a small electric shock. In the second group, subjects were told that the risk of this happening was only 50%. The researchers measured the physical anxiety, heart rate, nervousness, sweating, etc., shortly before commencing. The results were, well, shocking. There was absolutely no difference. Participants in both groups were equally stressed. Next, the researchers announced a series of reductions in the probability of a shock for the second group from 50% to 20%, then 10%, then 5%. The result, still no difference. However, when they declared they would increase the strength of the expected current, both groups' anxiety levels rose, again by the same degree. This illustrates that we respond to the expected magnitude of an event, the size of the jackpot or the amount of electricity, but not to its likelihood. In other words, we lack an intuitive grasp of probability. That is absolutely true, especially if you read the book Innumeracy. The proper term for this is neglect of probability, and it leads to errors in decision making. We invest in startups because the potential profits makes dollar signs flash before our eyes before we forget. But we forget or are too lazy to investigate the slim chances of new businesses actually achieving such growth. Most of them don't really do very well unless you really research them very well and know the actual people that run them. Similarly, following extensive media coverage of a plane crash, we cancel flights without really considering the minuscule probability of crashing, which of course remains the same before and after such a disaster. Many amateur investors compare their investments solely on the basis of yield. For them, Google shares with a return of 20% must be twice as good as property that returns 10%. That is unfortunately not correct. It'd be a lot smarter to also consider both investments' risks. But then again, we have no natural feel for this, so we often turn a blind eye to it. Back to the experiment with the electric shocks. In Group B, the probability of getting a jolt was further reduced from 5% to 4% to 3%. Only when the probability reached 0 did Group B respond differently to Group A. To us, 0% risk seems infinitely better than a highly probable 1% risk. To test this, let's examine two methods of treating drinking water. Suppose a river has two equally large tributaries. One is treated using method A, which reduces the risk of dying from contaminated water from 5% to 2%. The other is treated using method B, which reduces the risk from 1% to 0%. For example, the threat is completely eliminated. So method A or method B? If you think like most people, you will opt for method B, which is silly because with measure A, 3% fewer people die, and with B, just 1% fewer. Method A is 3 times as good. This fallacy is called the zero risk bias, and I think that's discussed in a different chapter as well. So a classic example of this is the US Food Act of 1958, which prohibits food that contains cancer-causing substances. Instituted to achieve zero risk of cancer, this ban sounds good at first, but it ended up leading to the use of more dangerous but non-carcinogenic food additives. So that is very interesting with regards to the rewards that we spoke about at some point. Furthermore, the law can never be enforced properly since it is impossible to remove the last banned molecule from food. Each farm would have to function like a hyper-sterile computer chip factory, and the cost of food would increase 100-fold. Economically, zero risk rarely makes sense. One exception is when the consequences are colossal, such as a deadly, highly contagious virus escaping from a biotech laboratory. No comment. We have no intuitive grasp of risk and thus distinguish poorly between different threats. The more serious the threat and the more emotional the topic, such as radioactivity, the less reassuring a reduction in risk seems to us. Two researchers at the University of Chicago have shown that people are actually afraid of a 99% chance, as they are of a 1% chance of contamination by toxic chemicals. An irrational response, but a very common one. So that was a bit of a slightly longer chapter than usual. Anyhow, the main point of it is that we don't really understand statistics and probability, which can be very, very dangerous when it comes to our activities and behaviors. And here we go. Mladen just left a comment and he says, 1 in 250,000 can get blood clot from the AstraZeneca vaccine. Can you guarantee me I will not be that one? And that is the really interesting one. That is the perfect example. So yes, there is only a 1 in 250,000 chance that you will get a blood clot. That is very small. But as humans, we don't want to necessarily run that risk. And sometimes we still do. So this chapter is about understanding those probabilities. And I would highly recommend, and it could be one of the books that we actually read at some point. It's called Innumeracy, and it talks about numbers and how bad we are at estimating numbers and understanding numbers. But the main point for today is to understand that we want to understand the numbers so that when we are investing, when we are doing certain things, when we are playing casino games or gambling or doing any kinds of things like this, if we understand the numbers, we're in control of what is going on. We can say, just like Warren Buffett, I'm not interested in that bet, or that is something that has a highly probable chance for me. So that's where the difference between gambling and investing comes in. So in gambling, we don't really have control over the outcome at all. There is just a probability, and sometimes we will make it and sometimes we won't. Whereas with investing, yes, it is also a bit of probability. However, we have some information. We know who has managed this company and what they've done in the past and what their track record is and whether they've achieved certain things. We can tell whether the company has been making profits consistently, whether there is a demand for the product, whether the demand has been going down. All of these different things give us information that don't take away all risk, but they do allow us to be able to have some insight that give us a much better probability than if we're just gambling. So that is probably one of the biggest lessons from this chapter. I'll see if it might be interesting. I have all these ideas for videos to make. So on the YouTube channel, we might start putting some videos about probabilities and numbers and things around what Innumeracy talks about. So keep an eye out for that. And also the Tuesday night cash flow game that we play. It's even more than cash flow because it's really like a simulator, a life simulator. And we have some financial indicators. We'll start putting up some videos on those financial indicators on the YouTube channel as well. So if you're already watching on YouTube and you have any questions, leave a comment. If you are live on Bigo, you're also most welcome to. And I saw that somebody has Nottingham online. Aha, there we go. Has just sent us lots of beautiful flowers and different things. So appreciate that. So just sent them a follow. So leave a comment if you're on Bigo or on Facebook, on YouTube or wherever you're watching. And I love having the discussion. So Mladen, thank you for your comment this morning. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again tomorrow. What's tomorrow's chapter? Let's have a quick look. So chapter 27, I cannot believe that we've already gotten through this many chapters. 27, why the last cookie in the jar makes your mouth water. This one's called the Scarcity Error, not the scarcity effect, but the Scarcity Error. So looking forward to reading that one for you tomorrow. Have a great day, and remember to stay on top of your numbers, and that'll help you to create more of a better day. So see you then.